presentation, and much, much more. Thank you so very much for your continuous support. Continue to watch, continue to support. Stay safe, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great rest of your day, and may God bless you. Now, back to the Rewind Sports 60 channel.
Hey, Cody, if you guys do go back to Mitch as your starting quarterback this week, what message would that send to the offense?
Yeah, I mean, whoever plays quarterback this week, we know that, our main objective is to beat the Packers, and that's what we're going to work for this week.
Chris Emma.
Cody, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. You've been close with Mitch since he got in with the team. How has he handled everything since losing his starting job, and what's he been like kind of behind the scenes?
Yeah, he's been great. He just comes to work every day focusing on getting better and whatever role he's put in, that's what he tries to do, is just get better each and every day.
How do you think he would handle if he is that guy stepping in Sunday? How do you think he would handle going back to this starting spot and getting another opportunity there?
Yeah, Mitch prepares well each week, whether he's in a backup role or a starting role. So I don't foresee that changing, and he's just going to do the best he can and prepare.
Adam Hogue.
Hey, Cody, when you look back at the first couple, 2-3 weeks of the season, when you guys were having some success running the football, what did you like about what you guys were doing, and why was it working back then?
I just think the main thing that we have to get back to is just executing, communicating up front, making sure we put our offense in the best scenario to have success in the run game. And, that all starts with me, communicating with the guys and making sure we're where we need to be and give our offense a success so that we can run the ball.
Pat Finley.
Cody, what was your coronavirus experience like? What was the feeling like when you found out, and then did you have symptoms? What did you do to your body?
Yeah, I was a little shocked, but it is what it is during this tough time and a time of pandemic. The Bears did a great job taking care of me and my family and getting me back on the field as fast as I can.
Did it make you feel, did you have any symptoms?
Like I said, the Bears just helped me, treat my whatever I had and get back to playing as fast as I could.
Brad Biggs.
Hey, Cody. Thanks for taking the time today. I know it's not your position to evaluate how your teammates are performing, but I'm just curious what your thoughts were of Mustipher in that Rams game, and then what you've seen from Alex Bars, two younger guys that haven't played a whole lot.
Yeah, both guys have done great. They've prepared really hard. Sam came in and did a nice job along with Alex. So, those are tough spots we got to be put in due to the pandemic and injuries, and they handled it very well.
Deion Miller.
Cody, through the first 10 games, it seems like a lot of the offensive issues have kind of been on repeat. As you come out of the bye week, do you feel a different sense of urgency to find that identity? Do you feel it's closer than it's been before? And what would it mean to kind of put it all together in a rivalry game like this?
Yeah, you definitely use the bye week to self-reflect and figure out individually where we can be better and as a team. And I think the biggest thing is, we know the rivalry of, how it is against the Packers, and we're going to come out hungry. I can promise you that.
Dan Wiederer.
Hey, Cody, I have a second question as well, but just following up on Pat's question, how did you feel during your time with the coronavirus?
Yeah, it's an unfortunate situation where you got to be away from the team and not around your teammates. I would probably say that's the hardest part. But like I said, the Bears did a good job and making sure I was doing okay and got me back on the field as fast as I could.
Were you sick at all? I mean, were you in bed? Were you tired? Did you have the things that we hear about?
Like I said, it's just a tough situation, and the Bears got me back on track. That's for sure.
So, on a side note, given the losing streak, given the playoff picture, given the rivalry with the Packers, how do you describe sort of the meaning of Sunday night and the urgency that you guys have to take into Green Bay?
Yeah, it means a lot. To the fans, to the players, to our organization, to ownership, from the top down, it means everything to us. So we're going to come out ready to roll. We're going to get this thing rolling on offense and come out with a W.
Thanks for your time this morning, Cody.
Thanks, guys.
David, I've got two questions. First of all, I'm wondering, have you cleared the concussion protocol?
Yes, I have. So I practiced 2 days ago. So I'm ready to go.
Well, that's good to know for sure. And then my second question is, what was different for you running the ball in the first 3 weeks of the season versus the 7 games that have occurred since? What fundamentally was different? Because you look at the numbers and there's a pretty clear difference.
That's a good question. When like you see like differences in that, you go back to like trying to figure out what have you individually not done well. There's been a lot of stuff a lot of things up to this week where I haven't done well enough to where I can help the guys up front and I can help myself. So I put full harness on myself, being able to go back and fix the things that I need to fix for myself. So just me going back out there, just figuring out what I need to do to get better and attacking it.
JJ?
David, what have you seen out of Mitch in the weeks since he was benched and made the number 2 quarterback? How have you seen him still prepare in that time span?
Mitch prepares the same way. He comes in the facility early, one of the last guys to leave. He takes care of his body. He makes sure that he knows what he needs to know. But Mitch has always been a guy that always prepare in the best way you can. So just being able to see him come in and prepare the way he does and taking it serious and just handle adversity as he has, it's been big. So he's definitely been preparing right.
Kevin Fishbane?
Hey, David, just wondering what the experience was like for you having to go through the concussion. Is that something you've had before in your football career?
I've never had one this severe. So it was definitely different, but I'm fine now. We went through the protocol. The training staff's been great with me, being sure that I come back when I'm ready. And it was definitely something different for me. So it's just good to be back.
Dan Wiederer?
David, what was more extreme about this head injury for you? And also just knowing the way you're wired, I imagine it couldn't have been difficult. It had to be difficult watching that game and not being able to participate. What was that experience like? I think you were at home for that, just being stuck on your couch watching it.
Yeah, it's definitely a different perspective from being in the game and not being involved at all, being a fan essentially. But it was, I understood that it had to happen. If I would have forced myself to play or not communicated, it could affect me long term in my life or when I have my children and when I have my family. And that's one thing that I don't ever want to do, and one thing that I don't want to ever regret doing is, taking an injury and not communicating, because I want to be like that tough guy. I know how tough I am, but there's some stuff you gotta like communicate with and take care of yourself with.
Were you having extra severe headaches or dizziness or anything that came with this one?
Yeah, it was just really a lot of uncomfortable, like a lot of uncomfortability. Not being comfortable, thinking like it's just a lot of stuff that partake in that sense of my head and how I was thinking. So I just had to be smart and honest with myself and communicate.
Mark Potash?
Hey, David, as the run game has stagnated these last few weeks, how close are you? You've had offensive line issues, just a lot of problems. Can you see a light at the end of the tunnel? Can you see where maybe this thing can turn around? Any kind of indicators that give you a feeling that, hey, just something, that it will click?
Yeah, there's always a light at the end of every tunnel I've been through. So I'm never one to lose hope or ever lose faith in the process. And first and foremost, God. So like, you just keep coming out here every week, going to work and focus on what you can control and going out there being a great team guy, being sure that, we stay on top of things, because it will turn, whether anybody want to believe it or not, but it will. And we'll be here for it.
And is there? I know it's your nature to be kind of even keeled and be unruffled, but have you had to suppress feelings of frustration that you haven't been able to run? I mean, even Nagy has said there's a lot more there with you than you've shown. Is it even for you, a guy like yourself? Is it tough? Do you have moments of frustration where you just wonder if it's ever going to work out?
Yeah, I mean, that's anybody who's a competitor. There's definitely moments of frustration where you feel like things aren't going your way. You know, the ball's not rolling in your corner, but you just you learn more when you learn a lot more when things aren't going your way than when things are. You learn how to be honest with yourself, how to be faithful to the process, even when sometimes the process doesn't seem like it's working. But yeah, it definitely, like, you can be frustrated, but you just gotta use the thumb to point back at yourself and figure out what you can do to make yourself better and make the team better. Because at the end of the day, like, if I don't go out there with the best mindset and the best mentality to try to make everybody else around me better, nothing will ever, be as good as it will be. So you just gotta, point the thumb at yourself and figure out what things you fix and attack them.
Few more for David. Dion.
And David, in light of that, what have you learned about this team that's gone from 5-1 now to 5-5 and dealing with this adversity? And what's the mood been like as you come back together for the last 6 games?
Yeah, fighters, it's what Chicago Bear. That's the definition of a Chicago Bear. You're a fighter. Regardless of the situation, regardless of what it may look like, being able to put the horse blinders on and just focus on a task at hand and being able to do it together. That's the big thing. I think when things go wrong, a lot of things tend to happen, like pointing fingers, but here that doesn't happen. Everybody's pretty accountable for themselves, and we can be more accountable, yeah, but we pretty much accountable for ourselves, and we be sure that we take serious and what we have to handle and accomplish. But it's gonna get turned. There's no worry in my mind at all.
Pat.
Hey, David, Charles London told us that you and he had talked about the benefit of actually watching the game on TV. I imagine, was that a first for you, watching your team on TV? And is there anything you can learn from that you wouldn't learn standing on the sideline?
Yeah, what I learned is I didn't want to be at home, and I wanted to be on the field. I mean, that's just anybody who's, like I said, a competitor who wants to be out there with their team. The last thing I want to be is at home and feel useless and feel helpless. So, yeah, that was probably the biggest feeling that I felt. I definitely don't want to feel that feeling again.
Last one, Dan.
David, at 5-5, with the season getting shorter, with the playoffs still sort of hanging out there as a goal, how do you describe the significance of Sunday night and the urgency that you guys need to take to this one?
You just got to take it one game at a time, one day at a time, and one play at a time. We'll prepare the way we need to prepare. But like I said, we fighters, man. So if anybody's counting us out, that's fine. But we fighters, so we're just gonna keep fighting.
Robert, how are you doing?
I'm blessed. How about yourself?
I'm doing okay. Ted Bonacchino said last week that you guys had a meeting and you just kind of went over, or had a team meeting, but went over just some little things you could do to help you get home faster. Can you elaborate on that? And what do you think could set the spark here for you?
You said get home faster?
Yeah, or get to the quarterback. Yeah.
I want to make sure we're talking about the same thing. I mean, rush. It's kind of rushing coverage. It all works together. Us, the guys up front, disrupting, either taking on double teams or, just got a one-on-one block. Someone has to win, but then we got to, if we do get back there, most of the time, the DBs, the secondary linebackers bought time for us to actually get back there. So it kind of works hand in hand. I mean, of course, we like to put on ourselves, and no matter how much time we have, we should be able to get back there. But at the same time, it kind of works hand in hand.
Mike Berman.
Robert, how would you characterize and evaluate your season to this point? How do you feel about it?
My season? I'll be honest, it's been very average, not up to my standards, but we got 6 more games left. Anything can happen. I know how I prepare. I know how I train. Statistically, it just hasn't been my season, but effort, charisma, all that stuff's been there. It's just that, I guess, quote unquote, getting the numbers that we're all looking for.
Dan Wiederer.
What's your sense for why the numbers haven't gotten there?
If I knew, I'm sure they probably wouldn't be there. So I don't know. It's just been one of those years, just hasn't been one of my best years, but we still got a chance, and we're still a great defense. Even though my performance, we're still holding together as a great defense. So it's not all just about me, So.
You've obviously been in this league for a long time. When you have this stretch run here now where you're still alive in this playoff hunt and you guys have an opportunity, how do you sort of describe what needs to go into these last 6 weeks to make sure that those dreams don't slip away too early?
I guess there's 2 things. We all, as a team, look ourselves in the mirror, realize who we are and what we have. Then break it down to football-wise. We just got to go 1-0 6 times, and we give ourselves a great chance. So just one week at a time. Let's do 1-0 1 week at a time, and see where the chips in. I know this. I think it was a 9-7 or 10-6 Giants team that beat an undefeated Patriots. So as long as we get in, we got a chance.
Kevin Fishbane.
Hey, Robert, you've obviously been in the league for a long time. I'm curious, during a bye week, how you kind of self-scout, and if this past week in terms of self-scouting was different than in previous years when you've kind of looked at your own play.
No, every play, every year, I've been, very critical. I always say I'm more critical of myself than anyone else. Someone may give me a praise, but I'm looking at what I did wrong. Because I just, I'm trying to be the best player I can be. Yeah, so why things aren't, I guess, going the way I expect them to, I don't know, but I'm just trying to disrupt as much as I can, and even if I don't get the quote unquote sack or TFL, if I can free up someone else to make the play, that's still being effective.
JJ.
Robert, in your experience playing for some teams that had good defenses, maybe not so good offenses, what's the key to sticking together and not having some of the finger pointing that can sometimes happen when one unit is playing at a very high level and having a lot of success and the other unit maybe is not?
Well, I know I play outside linebacker for the Bears. I have nothing to do with the offense. We believe in those guys, and at the end of the day, I play defense. So we're supposed to keep points off the board. That's our objective. Like you said, can't point fingers anywhere else. We can control what we can control. So we keep points off the board. And then if we really want to raise our level, we can score on defense too if we really want to be dominant. So there's no finger pointing, guys just trying to rise to the occasion, and just haven't happened consistently. But again, we got the guys and the people in this building to get this thing right.
Couple more for Robert. Dion.
Robert, are you surprised that a 5-1 team now sits at 5-5 at this point in the season? And what have you learned about the group going through this?
Well, it's I realize going 5-1 to 5-5, that just lets you know how the NFL is. Each week is very, very crucial. Then again, the guys, we wanted to didn't want to go on a 4-game losing streak. So there, of course, there's prideful frustration knowing that, again, the talent we have in the room. And of course, as the season goes, you can't let those tight games slip away. So it's more, again, just guys raising their accountability level, I won't say even raising their expectations, just, I guess, fine tuning the little details that, that might cause to hurt us or help us win games.
Pat Finley.
Robert, from the outside, what did you know about Bears Packers before coming here, and what have you learned about it since?
Well, I always known that they hated each other. Then as you get here, I didn't realize how old the rivalry truly was. So then, of course, I think they were part two of the first 12 or however many original teams, and the names that both organizations have put out there, you can see why it's such a love-hate rivalry. And of course, when both teams been around over 100+ years, playing each other year in, year out, twice a year sometimes, you tend to start I don't want to say hating, but disliking something like that. So it's just part of the game, and happy to be a part of it.
Last one, Mark Grody.
Hey, Robert, I know you guys are 10 games into the season, but in your everyday football life, practicing games, everything, do you feel a sense of normalcy yet? Because, due to COVID-19, do things feel normal, or does it still all feel weird and upside down and crazy?
I mean, on the field, to me, it feels pretty normal. I mean, when we get inside, and you got to be super cautious about the mask, and they don't. I've been used to hanging out in the locker room, just talking with the guys, hanging out, just living normal life. Now it's hard to talk with guys because, most of the time their face covered up, me being on a new team, trying to learn new faces. So it's been quite an adjustment for me. So, it's different, but you make the best out of your situation, and, you try to grow from there.
Thanks for your time, Robert.
Thank you. Have a good one.
It's the freshest radio show in town. Feeling marvelous, I've been with Jerry Riles. It's the freshest radio show in town. Feeling marvelous, I've been with Jerry Riles. WCPT. WCPT.
This the coldest sports show. You were getting the hour from 6 p.m. to 7. Chillin' with Lauren Cox and the man Marvelous. Shout out to Mr. Riles and the Italian style. What sports is the only politic?
WCPT. WCPT. It's the freshest radio show in town. Feeling marvelous, I've been with Jerry Riles. It's the freshest radio show in town. Feeling marvelous, I've been with Jerry Riles.
Welcome, everybody, to the Rewind Sports 60. I am your host, Lauren Cox, and we are live on WCPT 8:20 a.m., the fastest hour in sports conversation. Join in the conversation if you guys want. This is a fabulous evening, and we got a lot of sports to get into, so I'm going to get right into it, guys. I'm going to get to my esteemed panel. We have Dan Marver, the marvelous one. Dan, I wanted to hear your thoughts on Theo basically saying that he was done. 10 years run as the Cubs GM, did a phenomenal job, many think. Wanted to get your take on that. And then also the Bears game. As we know, unfortunately, we did fall to the Vikings Friday night. And so want to hear your take on those two things. Monday night,
Yeah,
sorry.
well,
it felt like a Friday
well,
night. I'm losing track of time right now.
You're right, Lauren. This is a bye week, and some have argued the last 4 weeks the offense was on bye week. So
pretty much.
So that takes care of that. In terms of, we won't even have a result next Sunday because it's a night game against Green Bay.
Right.
But be that as it may, Theo, did a miracle in Boston and a miracle in Chicago. So and he's still in his 40s, so he has plenty of time to do whatever he wants to be the commissioner of baseball or whatever he wants to do.
Absolutely.
So, he can, he wants to spend time with the fam, so go for it. And, without any Bears football, I was focused on the Big Ten. I know Jerry's wearing his mask.
There he is.
Yeah, there was actually the undefeated teams all played each other yesterday. Ohio State, in a great game, defeated Indiana, and it was really a thriller. They won by only a touchdown, 42-35. And then up here in Evanston, the Wildcats won 17-7 over Wisconsin.
Yes, indeed.
And the Cats are now 5-0 in the Big Ten for the first time since 1995 when they went to the Rose Bowl. They actually went 8-0. They didn't play Ohio State that year, by the way. Their big wins were against Michigan and Notre Dame. But they did lose one game during the regular season, and without anybody going on Google, can anybody tell me in week 2 who Northwestern lost to in 1995? I was at the game.
Don't Google it. Don't Google it. Give us a call. Tell them, Lauren. 773-763-9278.
Absolutely. And then the amazing Jerry Riles. Jerry, want to hear your take? The NFC North standings just got a little tighter with that Bears brutal loss on Monday night, not Friday night. Jerry Riles, what say you about the state of the affairs of the Bears?
What's up, Lauren? How are you?
I'm wonderful. How
You're
are
looking
you?
fantastic.
Thank you.
Holy Moses. You look like you just walked out of a Vogue magazine.
Hey.
They just had the sexiest man in the world, right? Or sexiest man. Have you seen it?
No, I didn't see it.
You didn't see it?
Who was it?
Was that you, Jerry?
Well, unfortunately, I was runner-up, but
okay.
I got to do a better showing next year around. But the sexiest man alive.
Who was it?
Other than me.
Idris, yeah.
Other than me is what you're saying.
Number 2 came in at Idris Elba. Number 1, Jerry Riles.
Yeah, I stepped aside for this guy. I stepped aside for this guy. But the number 1, the sexiest man alive, Michael B. Jordan.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I can agree with that. Yeah. A little bit of Black Panther action for sure.
Yeah.
He's cute.
I stepped aside for him and said, okay, man, I'll let you roll with this one this time. Next year, because I'm always nominated every year.
Right.
I'm right there every year. Speaking of nominations, real quick, congratulations to all of those here in the Chicago market who was nominated for a Chicago Emmy.
Okay.
They're actually having the awards presentation tonight. I think it starts at 7:00. Obviously virtual. Mm-hmm. And I have to say congratulations to all the winners, all the nominees, and all the participants. Unfortunately, and I got a bone to pick with the selection committee, Lauren and Marver and Devin Tingle, because I submitted one of our shows. Mm-hmm. In the category for best interviews and on programming, and we didn't even get nominated. That's right.
That's a shame.
And the show, it is a shame. And the show that I submitted was the fabulous one with the great Mayor Lori Lightfoot
that was a good
back
show.
in April. Mm-hmm. It was award-winning show.
It was.
It was better than good.
We killed it.
It was an award-winning show.
Definitely.
And I thought for sure, and in the category that we were in, there were 5 other entrants. Mm-hmm. And I there was a couple from Milwaukee, because it's in the region.
Okay.
It's in the Chicago market. It's in the Indiana market, I think. And I think it's in the Milwaukee, the Wisconsin market. But there are like 3 or 4 markets that have the opportunity to submit, to enter into this.
Definitely beat them out.
One of them was with the Green Bay Packers.
Okay.
There was a piece done on the Green Bay Packers, I think, brothers that play for them. The other one was on the Milwaukee Bucks. There was a round table regarding the Milwaukee Bucks. And locally, it was us, the Rewind Sports 60, WCPT 820 AM, and of course, our website and Comcast and all of that good stuff. And then the other one was Kenny McReynolds, CIU, Channel 2060U, with the interview with Harold Baines. Okay,
I work with him.
One of my greatest. I love Harold Baines. And then the final one was with the Chicago Cubs and the Old Timers. roundtable discussion.
Okay.
Billy Williams, Ferguson Jenkins, I think Randy Huntley. So that was the category. And those were the entrants out of the 5. And I talked to my great friend, the great Dr. Gerard McClendon, and I said, hey, man, it's always great to get nominated.
Right.
It's always good to get nominated. You want to win the top prize, but it's
Sure.
always good to get nominated. And he and I talked to him. It's like, you know what? With Lori Lightfoot, and it was a phenomenal interview. If you missed it, check it out on Facebook. Check it out on YouTube. Just type in Lori Lightfoot on the Rewind Sports 60. She spent a half hour on the show.
She did.
She
didn't
talked
wanna
everything.
leave.
She didn't want to leave.
No.
And I'm like, come on now. We got the mayor of Chicago on during a pandemic, talking sports, calling the Bears offense pedestrian. I'm like, this is it's almost, a no-brainer.
Right.
Is Nick Foles the answer? We're going to see once they get out on the field and start putting it together on the offense. But the inconsistency of Trubisky over these last few years, it's just, even in the year that we had a great run, what you saw, I think, last year was the inconsistent offense wasn't producing. I thought the play calling was very pedestrian.
She said that on our show back in April. Award-winning program. So I'm thinking, with the 2 Bucks, with the Buck story, with the Packers story, with the Harold Baines story, with the Chicago Cubs story, and the great Lori Lightfoot, that's 5 right there. And I'm like, Lauren, come on, it's a no-brainer.
Right.
We should at least be nominated.
I want to win. I don't want to just be nominated.
Well, I want to win too. We should at least be nominated out of that, and not taking anything away from those outlets, not taking anything away from those interviews, not taking anything away from that. But when you lay it out there on the table, ladies and gentlemen,
we were looking good. We had our good outfits on.
Well, we always look good. But when you lay it out there on the table, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you, I don't care what your political, your background, I don't care about any of that. What I care about is bringing you the best in the city of Chicago and the surrounding area. And when you have the mayor of Chicago, and I was like, what if we had the old mayor, David, either one of them, dad or son, what if we had them on for a half hour? Hands down. I go, well, we had a mayor of Chicago on during a pandemic talking about the Chicago Bears, compelling radio, compelling interview, and we can't even get nominated for the Chicago Emmy Awards that's taking place today. We were robbed.
We were robbed.
We were robbed.
I think the one problem was I wasn't in the studio for that event.
True. Maybe that was the case. Maybe they went through and said, hey, you know what, Marvelous is not in studio. Forget about it. So I do want to just let everyone know that we submitted. And honestly, truly, I believe an interview with the mayor of Chicago, regardless of how you feel about her, it's about the content. And we put it out there for you.
Yeah.
And it was compelling. And for us to get, not even to get a nod, and again, nothing. I love Harold Baines. Kenny McReynolds and I, we go back decades.
Yep.
I love Harold Baines. But Harold Baines is not the most compelling interview. He is not the most compelling interview. I love him. When he had the bat in his hand over on the South Side playing for the South Side, the winning ugly team, Harold Baines was crushing baseballs. But if you sit down and talk to Harold Baines behind the microphone, he's not compelling. He's not.
I agree.
But at any rate, congratulations to everyone who was nominated. Congratulations to those who are winning. I got to say, I believe my good friend, I used to work with him at the old shop, the Score Sports Radio, Jason Goff for NBC Sports Chicago. He and his crew were nominated for a piece that they did. So good luck to Jason Goff and the NBC Sports Chicago team over there, Kevin Cross and all those guys. May you guys come away victors, but good luck to you. And, of course, congratulations if you walk away with the victor.
Amen.
Yes, indeed. Hey, we're not sore losers, but we just hate to lose.
Yes, we are.
We just hate to lose, not sore losers.
So you know what? I want to put it out there.
I think there should be a recount.
Yeah. Well,
exactly.
There you go.
Exactly.
But ladies and I just want to let the judges and the judging committee to let them know that we will be back. Because we got. Let me tell you something. Anytime you miss any portion of the Rewind Sports 60 on WCPT 820 AM, it's always compelling.
Yes, it is.
Whether it's with the 17th letter in the alphabet with Quentin Demps, a former Chicago Bear. Of course, Bruce Herring coming up at the bottom of the hour to talk about this debacle we witnessed just past Monday night. Our Chicago Bears and Minnesota Vikings. Whoever is on the show, it's always compelling. So we will be submitting another interview for the 2020 campaign, 2021.
Yes,
we will.
indeed. We will.
We will.
We will.
But I just got to dust off my shoulder over here on a little bit.
I hear you, Jerry.
Because, hey, real is real.
Little tough. Real is real. But one truth from that interview was the great mayor of Chicago, Lori Lightfoot. She talked about the pedestrian offense. And when you look at that 1913 Vikings victory Monday night, the offense was pedestrian much of the evening. Justin Jefferson really helped propel Minnesota's attack, and a lot of things took place. The defense did their job. Special teams did their job. Offense and coaching is another story. Dan, I want to talk to you a bit about your assessment of that game on Monday night.
I think that if, unlike Sunday night, they don't have a flex availability on Monday nights. But I think that ESPN probably wish they had been able to flex that game out, because now the whole nation knows. I mean, I can't. They probably lost viewers, seriously. And people probably turned off the game and watched Jeopardy or something.
That second half, yeah.
It's just unbelievable that they can't. We're talking about adjustments. I mean, it's incredible that it's the same thing over and over again. Isn't that the definition of insanity?
Right.
Insanity it is. And Jerry, we saw the play calling change. It looked pretty okay at one point. Talk to me about what you saw in the difference in play calling, because a lot of, people were really, really on the fence. Was Matt going to actually give up the play calling? Some said it was the hardest decision that he ever had to make, but obviously what he was doing wasn't working. What did you see with the difference in play calling?
I honestly, the first 15 plays being scripted, you looked at it and say, okay, well maybe we're going to see something different. Mm-hmm. Maybe we're going to see a little bit more excitement. I don't want to see the trickery plays, but as the game progressed, and we started to see the 3 and outs and, the debacles from the left to the right to the middle, downfield, whatever the case may be, it's slowly but surely, and I think the announcers kind of alluded to it as well. And I know they talked about it in Sports Talk Radio after the game, locally and nationally. It appeared as if, Lauren, that Matt Nagy took the playbook and said, okay, I'm going to turn everything over. What?
Yeah, but they still have 41 yards rushing.
Hey, Lauren, I'm going to turn it over. I'm going to turn it over to you. You just take these plays here.
And just read them.
Just because he wasn't calling the plays doesn't mean they weren't trying to run the same plays that he would. And that was part of the problem.
I'm telling you, it was the same old thing. 41 yards rushing.
Yeah.
In the whole darn game.
Yeah. I mean, that was part of the problem, was the fact that, Bill Lazor didn't get an opportunity to really implement, based on what we saw, some of the plays I think that he wanted to incorporate. Mm-hmm. I think that what happened was that Matt Nagy just gave him the playbook and took some of the plays out and said, okay, let's work with this and see what we got.
Took some of the 5,000 plays out.
Right? And then, as far as the defense is concerned and the Minnesota Vikings are concerned, it's like taking candy from a baby. And it was just embarrassing, like Marvel said, on national television. It was despicable, embarrassing, and unacceptable. It certainly was. And I got to tell you, we talked to Quentin Demps last week, or a couple weeks ago, and we asked him, hey, listen, when do you think the wheels are going to really start falling off of this thing? And he said, hey, give it by Thanksgiving. Well, this is the week of Thanksgiving.
Oh, gosh.
And Lauren, I feel for those guys on the defensive side of the ball. Marvelous.
Yeah.
I feel for them. Even you talked about it to start to show off special teams. Mm-hmm. We produced. We were able to produce, and still offensively, we couldn't get anything done. And again, I've never played at the highest level. And I know what it takes to get there, and I know what it takes to stay there. But I also know it gets down to fundamentals and discipline. And we've had Richard Dent on the show over the past year talking about when he got into the league. And he's going up against, guys squaring off in practice. And he's looking at Jimbo Covert and some of these guys, and he's like, damn, these guys are freaking good, damn. And what Richard Dent told us is that once he put his hand, when he's gotten his position in his stance, once he put his hand on the ground and started digging in the dirt, he said it all came back to him. And what he meant was the fundamentals of the game. Mm-hmm. And I said this, and I continue to they teach you the fundamentals of the game for a reason. The great John Wooden of UCLA, the fabulous basketball coach, every year, and his players didn't understand this, but every year when they came into camp, he would have them unlace their tennis shoes, the Converse or whatever they were wearing, and he'd have them, lace them up. And they're like, Coach, why do we know how to tie our shoes? Why do we? And he told them, this is where it all starts, and this is how it all starts. And you build from there. The point being is that these guys on the offensive side of the ball, on the offensive line, you might not be the best, and you certainly aren't the best. You really aren't. But it's mano a mano. It's how much pride you have, and you say, hey, I'm not going to let this guy over here kick my ass. And if he's kicking my ass, I'm going to say, you know what? I'm tired of him kicking my ass. I'm tired of it. And you're going to get down to the basics. You're going to get down to the fundamentals. You're going to get down to the discipline. And you're going to start kicking his ass. The Bears simply don't have that. And for those of you out there who say, hey, Jerry, you shouldn't be using that language. Well, you know what? I'm sorry about that. And if you don't like it, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But I don't like to turn on, and Marvelous said it. Monday night, national television. This is our team. And we're watching this debacle, and everyone around the country are watching us, and we're the laughing stock as far as this offense is concerned. We're the laughing stock as far as this coaching debacle, what we have as a coaching staff. It's a debacle. We're a laughing stock. So it's not time to be nice. It's not time to be kind. We're getting our asses kicked every single freaking week on television, locally, regionally, and nationally. Enough is enough. These fans, we can't even go to the games because of COVID. But these fans over the years have been supporting this freaking football team. Marvelous, how long have you been a Chicago Bear fan?
Well, let's see. How long have I been alive?
There you go.
I've been obviously like a good 30 or 40 years.
Yeah. Lauren, how long have you been a Chicago Bear fan?
All my life.
All her life.
Born and raised.
Born and raised.
Yeah.
Listen. I have the greatest picture ever taken in the whole universe. It's the greatest one ever taken. Of course, I'm in it. Right? Of course, I'm in it. But it's with the two greatest athletes that ever played in their respective sports. One with the great Michael Jordan. The other one with the great Walter Payton. Walter Payton played when we had nobody, and no offense to Reeve Sorey and Dennis Lick and Dan Jiggets and Bob Avellini and any of them. No offense. But Walter Payton played his ass off because he didn't want to lose, and he played with pride. And this is the week of the anniversary this past week, I guess a couple of days ago, Marvelous, where Walter Payton broke the all-time rushing single-game rushing record, knocking off O.J. Simpson, 273 yards. Walter Payton busted up for 275 yards with the flu. Let's take a listen, Lauren.
The day that he broke the single-game rushing record, before the game, he was laying on the floor in the locker room, covered up with towels, shivering and shaking. He had the flu.
Here's Schubert. Wide to the left to Scott. Hand off to Walter Payton. Sliding to the right side. It pops out of the 30 to 35 to 40 to 45 to 50 and out of bounds. The Vikings clearance line. And there's a 28-yard run by Mr. Explosion himself on the very first play of the ball game. Inside the Viking 2-yard line. Avellini with a call to give to Payton. Following his blocker. Trying to turn the corner on the right side. Gets this one. Touchdown.
It was a good story because I used to from all my players all the time when they weren't feeling good. I just tell them that Walsh set the single game rushing record with 104 temperature. And so you need to go get dressed.
Inside handoff, big hole, Payton up the middle to the 50, cuts to the outside of the 45, cuts it up, 28 out of it, they cross the 40 and down to the 39-yard line.
Despite his physical style, Peyton only missed one game in his 13-year career.
They've been going to Peyton all day. Peyton and Noah Jackson had the flu, but they have simply dominated this football game. Second down, 8 the Bears at their own 32-yard line. They give to Walter again. Right to the outside of the 40, to the 45, the 50, the 45, the 40. He's down the far sideline. He's got 2 in the meat, and he gets the ball to the corner and out of bounds. That gives Peyton now 269 yards. He is 4 yards away from O.J. Simpson's league record of 273. Fourth down, goal from the 6-yard line. Deuce backfield, Avellini to Peyton on a sweep to the right side. Needs a block. He cuts back into the 5 and struggles down to about the 2-yard line. Well, there's the rushing record. Walter Peyton becomes the all-time single-game rushing leader in the NFL.
It was the day he ran for 275 yards against the Vikings that made him a legend.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is Chicago Bear football right there. That is Chicago Bear football. 275 yards against the Purple People Eater. Well, they weren't the Purple People Eater by then, but against the Minnesota Vikings, Walter Payton, the illustrious, the greatest running back in NFL history, busts 275 yards in 60 minutes of work against the Minnesota Vikings with the flu. With the freaking flu. And we know about the greatest of all time as far as the NBA is concerned in Michael Jordan, his flu game with the flu.
With the flu.
These two superior athletes, these two superior beings, laced them up for the beloved city of Chicago and bust their ass to bring championships home to us. Yet, this debacle that we have to sit and watch every freaking week, and I told you guys, I told you, and Lauren, I apologize. I told you guys, listen to me. When the Bears started at 5-1, everybody's dancing on Michigan Avenue. Hey, we're 5-1. The freaking coach Matt Nagy. Hey, yeah, we're 5-2. They're on the plane doing the club dub. Hey, yeah, enjoy it. Yeah. Hey, Nick Foles go. Hey, would you want to lose pretty or would you want to run ugly? Hey, Nick, and I hope you're okay with your hip flex or whatever. Nick, we want to win and not be embarrassed the way you guys embarrassed us offensively. The defense. Lauren, let me tell you something.
Hey, Rock.
You probably don't know this about me. Marvelous, you probably don't know. You probably don't know this about me. You guys probably don't know this about me. But I'm not a violent guy. I'm not a violent person.
The Bears driving you
I'm
to
of
it.
peace. I'm of peace. I sing good tides. I'm the guy who's going to sing Kumbaya.
I hear you, Jerry.
I am the guy. But if I played on the defensive side of the football for this 2020 Bears football team, if I played on the defensive side of the ball, if I'm Danny Trevathan, if I'm Khalil Mack, if I'm Akeem Hicks, and I hope Akeem Hicks is okay, if I'm Kyle Fuller, if I'm Eddie Jackson, if I'm on the defensive side of the ball, you know what I'm doing? I go, hey, wait a minute. Because y'all partying when you win. Oh, Club Dub, right? There ain't no Club Dub because y'all 5-5 now. You know what I'm doing? I go, hey. I'm gonna tell the coaches. I ain't even talking to coaches. I'm getting them the side eye. I'm looking at you like, man, get away from me.
Right.
I'm getting in the locker room. Hey, man, lock that door. I go, hey, lock the door. This one right here. Lock the door. Lock the door. Hey, defense, y'all over there. Offense over there. I say, hey, guess what? Turn out the lights. Let's go. Let's turn out the lights. Let's go. And I'm beating somebody's ass. I'm beating somebody's ass. I'm going to beat them like they stole something, Lauren. Like they stole something from me.
Okay, Jerry, but whose are you going to be? Because
anybody
you got the
on that offensive,
you got the coaching, you got the lack of a run game. There are a lot of issues here.
I'm grabbing them like this.
There's nobody in the room that's gonna perform. It looks like, no matter what you do.
No. Okay. Lauren stated it. She said the defense, they're performing.
I'm talking about the offense.
Special teams performing. Offense, you're beating the hell out of all of them. Wow. And you know what? You know how they do in hockey?
Yeah.
When they say, "Oh, Corey Crawford, he's got a lower body extremity. He's got a lower body injury." We don't know what that lower body injury is. He could have a bad toenail. Yeah. After they get out of this locker room, after the defense and the special teams beat the hell out of him.
Yeah.
Oh, he's got a lower.
Jerry,
a lower body injury.
What if no matter what you do, they just don't have the talent on offense?
No, you're not listening to what I'm telling you.
I know, but it doesn't matter.
You ain't listening to me.
You can beat them up, but they're just going to bleed and they'll still be bad.
Let me tell you something.
They're getting Trubisky back. That's
Let me tell you something.
The answer to all the
and again,
problems.
Don't start with me. Don't start with me. Listen, I told you this. Listen, they may not be the most talented, but when you're, in my opinion, when your back is against the wall and your life depends on it, you're going to fight like hell. You're fighting like hell.
I don't see a fight in them. I don't see a fight.
Yeah, I mean, it was back in the day that the defense did confront the offense. Remember back in the Ditka days, I think? Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? What happened? The offense stepped up and said, hell, screw y'all. Screw y'all. And they went out there and performed. And they brought home a World Series, a Super Bowl championship. You've got to take them by the collar and say, I'm tired of this kumbaya stuff. Oh, yeah, we're on the same page. Oh, we're all together. No one's going to divide us. Well, you've already divided yourself. You've already divided yourself. Because I'm telling you, these guys on Akeem Hicks, and I got to say, we're going to bring in Bruce Herron shortly, but Akeem Hicks, I don't know if it would have been that bad, Lauren, had he stayed in the game. But that hamstring, the Minnesota Vikings were chomping at the bit when they saw that he left the game.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
You know they are.
Yeah. Yeah. Where do you see us going, Lauren?
Well, unfortunately, the news gets worse because the last person on earth we wanted to see is the next person we're going to see, which is Green Bay.
Right.
And, it's
in Lambeau Field.
It is.
And the frozen tundra.
I don't even know what to say. So let's bring on somebody who can hopefully give us a little bit of hope regarding this Bears situation. We want to bring in our beloved number 51 linebacker, Bruce Herron. Bruce, welcome to the WCPT TR60 hotline. I know you watched the game. I got to know what's your assessment and where do we go from here? How are you, Bruce?
I'm doing fine. How are you guys doing?
Hey.
We're hanging in there, Bruce.
We're hurting.
I know.
And it's not getting better.
You can only imagine how I feel, man. I'm telling you. I truly expected them to perform a lot better than what they did. But you know what? It is what it is. I mean, you got a lot of guys hurt and but you know what? It really still no excuse because all these guys are professional. And, even when you're a backup, you've got to be prepared to play at any given moment and to get in there and do the job. Maybe not do it as well as, God dang, I'm sitting there watching the Green Bay Colts game and wondering, why in the hell can't we do some of this stuff? But
I felt like that many times.
Yeah, I know. But, our offensive lineman, it's almost like, it's a piecemeal group of guys that they brought together because they've had so many injuries and like I said before, even prior to the injury started happening with the offensive line, the starting five. I mean, hell, they wasn't doing that much anyway. So it's I don't know. I think there's a whole lot of soul searching that has to be done, and it's a good thing that they've got this bye this week. They could mend some injuries and give the guys who are actually going to play in the next game, give them a chance to work with the team in practice and work out some of the kinks. So that's the only thing we can hope.
We've got Bruce Herron, number 51, Bears former linebacker on the TR60 hotline. I want to ask you about Trubisky because now we're riding a 4-game losing streak. People are saying the Bears have no choice but to go back to Trubisky to jumpstart this offense. At least he can move when the O-line is not protecting him. What are your thoughts with Trubisky being back possibly as the quarterback? Because Matt Nagy, he did not rule it out. So what say you, Bruce?
Well, my thought process is that, he can't get any worse. I mean, we thought that we all were pulling for Nick Foles to come in and give the team a spark, and he did. He did the first game or two. But when you look at the stats are not any better, and in some cases worse than when Trubisky was in there. Nick Foles just doesn't have the mobility. You look at quarterbacks in the NFL today. I mean, I mean, everybody's athletic. And if you don't have an athletic quarterback, at least a quarterback that can just step left or step right to, bypass the pressure a little bit or step up in the pocket. And Foles he just doesn't have the mobility, and that's a sad thing. But, in terms of Trubisky coming back, you know what? You might as well. I mean, you can't get any worse than what you're doing right now.
I'm gonna disagree with you, Bruce. And the reason.
Do you think Ray is the answer? We've seen that show before.
Wait a minute, we've seen Trubisky's show before too. Are you kidding me? And here's the reason why I disagree with you, and I'm going to use your words. I'm gonna use your words from last week.
You're gonna use my words against me, huh?
Yeah, I'm gonna use your words against you. What you shared with us.
My friend.
I am your friend. I love you. I love you to death. I'm gonna use the words that you shared with our listening audience last week regarding the Bears and what you would do if you were the Minnesota Vikings attacking this Bears offense. If Mitchell Trubisky sets up behind center, Cody Whitehair, against the Green Bay Packers, or any other game the remaining part of the season, the great Bruce Herron said he would let it all hang out and just tell his defense to pin their ears back and attack the quarterback. And so if you put Mitchell Trubisky back there, I don't care how athletic he is, he still can't read NFL defenses. I'm going to tell my defense to pin their ears back and go get them.
Oh,
it's a fight. Hey, I'll meet you at the quarterback. And that's what I'm doing for Mitchell Trubisky. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, that's how I would do the same thing. I would attack him. I would attack him because the offensive line has not shown that they can handle pressure. And you know what? Last week, what was the linebacker's name that was on with us?
Sam
Macho.
Sam said, we talked about what would we do against the Bears in the game last week, and I said I would bring pressure damn near every snap.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? Bringing pressure is not just blitzing. It's running the games with the offensive line. It's faking 8-man front and dropping back. It's doing all those types of things, and so it's actually putting your defense in a position where they dictate the game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They dictate the game.
And that's the thing.
And they dictate the game by forcing the offense to respond to them when they don't want to, and throwing them off balance. And that's all I'm talking about.
Sure, and that's the reason why I wouldn't. First of all, Mr. Trubisky is still not 100% as far as the shoulders are concerned. But secondly, he can't read NFL defenses. And like you say, you put a defense in front of, you put the Packer defense in front of Mitchell Trubisky. He's like a deer in headlights. You're gonna have different schemes set up for this kid. He's gonna think he's seeing one thing, and then the next thing you know, a linebacker is gonna drop back, or you're gonna bring up a corner, or you're gonna have the safety drift over, and Mitchell Trubisky won't know how to react to that. It's not gonna happen. At least with this, and they're saying that Nick Foles' injury isn't as serious as it looked, being carted off last week. But at least with the Nick Foles, to me. Because we can't. That guy's getting his brains beat in. He's getting his brains beat in. But at least you got something. You got something that maybe you can go with. But right now, man, it's just a matter of surviving and trying to get through this season. And we certainly need to talk about.
What would you do, Jerry? What would you do, Jerry?
What would I do?
What would you do?
I would, if Nick Foles is ready to go, and again, I would tell
but what if he's not?
Then I would put the break kid out there. I will put him out there. Oh. Mitchell Trubisky
against Green Bay.
Mitchell Trubisky would be my third option. He would be my third option. He would be my third. You've got people, and we love you, and the fact that you're coming on every week talking with us about Chicago Bear football is phenomenal. But you got guys around the National Football League who are saying, you know what, the bus with Mitchell Trubisky, it's left the station. It's over. No, there's nothing else. Because here's what happens, Lauren, Marvelous, Bruce. If you put Mitchell Trubisky out there, and let's say he has some little success because he's scrambling around and running around. Just like that 5-1 record, just like at 5-2 record, and we talked about smoke and mirrors. You're going to have people believing that Mitchell Trubisky is the answer, which means you're going to move forward with them. Even though you didn't pick up that option, you're going to try to move forward and say, hey, you know what? Maybe this is the kid and he's starting to mature and coming to his own. He's done.
No.
He's done.
No.
It's over.
No. There's no way that organization, anybody in that organization in the decision-making position, regardless of what Mitchell Trubisky does, if he gets back in there, can think that Mitchell is the answer going forward. Mitchell is not the answer going forward. He is not the answer. And they know that. That's why they're so reluctant to put him back in. But you know what? You can't do any worse than what you're doing right now with Mitchell back there. Let him play. Let him play. Let him play. Because we've seen Bray play before, and trust me, Bray is not. He's man, please. Bottom line is we don't have any options.
Sure. Well, this is Dan here. I think you're right. I mean, don't think we can get Chase Daniels back. But here's the thing. There is a silver lining. Can you believe it?
Okay.
I was going to say put Patterson at a Wildcat, but that's another subject. Right now, this could be a good day for the Bears. Detroit got shut out. Minnesota lost, and Green Bay's in overtime. We may pick up a half game on everybody. And here's the thing. We play Houston and Jacksonville, who are terrible, and so that might be an even match. And the rest of the games are against divisional opponents, and maybe they're not so good. And maybe as bad as we are, playing mostly the division, we might have a chance if we can get it together a little bit. But I think that what's going to happen, what's going to happen is Foles is going to play, in my opinion, if he's healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So there you have it.
But you know what? I'm going to tell you something. If that offensive line, and they've got 2 or 3 backups on the offensive line right now. If they get if between this past game.
Mm-hmm.
This week and the next time they step foot on the field, if they can develop some type of a chemistry, some type of timing, just to give Foles or whoever the quarterback is, give them just an extra second and a half. Just an extra second and a half. You know what? We may be able to do some damage because if the offense is somewhat decent, and you know what? It gives the defense hope, and they're playing their butts off. They're not feeling dejected. They're not feeling like they're putting all this energy out there and they're getting nothing back, because that's what happens with our defense, with a great defense. When you got an offense that's just not toting their weight, you go out there and bust your butt and you get the ball back to your offense, and then you come sit down and you sit down for a minute and a half and you're back out on the field. So what the hell? It's just I don't know, man. But my thing is if they can develop some type of a chemistry with this offensive line during this break time, just some kind of chemistry, man, and get the guys to just play at a different level, just a little bit. I think we got ourselves a chance. But that's got to happen. That's got to happen, regardless of who the quarterback is. And I'm hoping that Foles can come back and play. But I mean, if it's going to be behind the line that is breaking down every other snap, holding penalties, getting beat, it's just, I mean, I saw so much just basic blocking they were missing out on, just basic blocking. It was just terrible, So
it sure was.
I don't know.
It sure was, Bruce. And head coach Matt Nagy, he stated that obviously we struggled mightily on offense. We had field position. We couldn't convert on that. It overshadows how well our defense played. It's been a consistent theme. It's been the same stuff over and over. He also said that he's undecided on who the quarterback is for week 12. It's all on the table. So I wanted to pose the question to you, Bruce. And you kind of talked about it a bit, but besides the quarterback, what do you think the Bears' biggest problem is? Because we were talking a bit about it earlier before the show. They're talking about, pace, obviously, Nagy, but even going above and beyond the Bears president. Somebody needs to answer for how the Bears have been playing consistently. We thought Matt Nagy was going to help us. Then, the whole quarterback situation came into play. Now it's the O-line. The running game is pedestrian as well. Everything is going wrong. What do you think the Bears' biggest problem is? If you took off your linebacker hat, put on your owner's hat, what changes would you make?
First change I would make is you'd have to address the quarterback situation. You have to address the quarterback situation.
They did though. Nick Foles.
No. I'm talking about address the quarterback. I'm not talking about a pass where you put a Band-Aid on a 6-inch in a 6-inch wound that's 3 inches deep. You know, I mean that's pretty much what they did with this Nick Foles thing. Nick Foles wasn't the answer. I was hoping that they would go out and get Teddy Bridgewater or either Cam Newton, but when they went and got Foles, I said, "Oh my goodness," But if I'm the owner, the one person that I have to address is the guy that's calling the shots, and that's the GM. The guy that's calling the shots is the GM. I mean, it's almost like when it comes to the offense, they don't have any talent scouts. It's like they cannot identify talent, and that's weird to me, man. It just don't make sense. They don't have a scheme. They don't have a scheme. It seems like it. I'm not going to say they don't. It appears that they don't have a scheme that they're trying to find pieces to fit into their scheme. You look at Kansas City. First thing Kansas City looks at is speed. Man, they got so much speed on that damn team, both offensive and defensive. Speed kills, man. Anybody will tell you speed kills.
Yeah, it does.
Go out and get. Yeah.
Hey, Bruce, but let me ask you this:
the GM has got to take some heat for this.
Well, let me ask you, and I agree with you. I totally agree with you. But how do we explain the GM and Ryan Pace? His selections on the defensive side of the ball have been pretty good. I mean, he got Roquan Smith, he got Eddie Jackson, he got this Jalen Johnson. I mean, his defensive moves have been pretty good. How does he become pedestrian-like on the offensive side of the ball? How does that happen?
Man, I have no idea. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how they missed on the quarterback situation in 2017. It just didn't make sense. How in the hell do you miss on something like that when you got talent? They got 4 or 5 pieces in the college race that you could pick for before you move all the way down to Trubisky. I don't get it, man. I did. That was a move that I thought it was just a ridiculous move, man, to begin with.
And what? Here's the interesting thing about that.
And that messed up everything.
It certainly did. But if we go back over the history of the game, okay, and we look at some of the great quarterbacks who have come through this game, and even some of the mediocre quarterbacks, all those guys, they were pretty much star players in their respective teams on the collegiate level. They were stars. Right. And they're mediocre at best. Some of them are mediocre at best and a journeyman. Look at Jameis Winston. You would think Jameis Winston would be able to start against with the New Orleans Saints with Drew Brees going down, but he wasn't, right? Yeah, Marcus Mariota with Oregon. You would think that these guys would be able to make it to the next level and succeed based on what they were able to do on a collegiate level. I agree with you. How in the hell do you go, hey, you know what? This kid right here out of North Carolina, he's got something special. Out of all the quarterbacks who played in the National Football League, out of all of them, they all played at an elite level on a collegiate level. And some of them made it, most of them didn't. But you see this guy out of North Carolina, 13 starts under his belt, and you go, you know what? That guy right there, he can lead this team. Let's go for him. It makes no sense whatsoever.
Here, Jerry,
Zero.
They were picking him as a backup to Mike Glennon at the time. That's what was happening.
Zero. And you know what's a lost art? You know what's a lost art, Bruce? The lost art is, and we're watching Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers fight against the Indianapolis Colts. We're watching them fight in overtime.
Right.
But remember Aaron Rodgers, back up to Brett Favre. Brett Favre was like, he's going to have to take this job because I'm not going to give it up. But Aaron Rodgers did what is a lost art in the National Football League, where he put on his baseball cap, had the clipboard, and he stood and he watched the game on the sideline to learn.
That's right.
That's a lost art. And we see the success that he's having now, Hall of Fame quarterback. Sure. It's a lost art. And it's I agree with you. It's missing. And Ryan Pace, and I'm going to throw it out there. I'm always on the soapbox. Let me say this to you.
Okay.
It's a damn shame. We're in 2020, and I'm ecstatic that we have 7, 8 black quarterbacks starting in the National Football League. I'm ecstatic behind that. But when you look at the number of African American coaches, head coaches on the sideline, when you look at the number of African Americans in the front office around the league, talk about pedestrian, it's pathetic. It's pathetic. And no offense to Ryan Pace. No offense to Ryan Pace. But if he's the best that you can find out there to lead an organization, to lead a franchise, to me, in 2020, of course I know he's been here, there's something wrong with that picture. There's something wrong with that picture. It's the Rooney Rule. It's a damn shame that you have to implement something like that.
Right.
It's ridiculous. It's pathetic, and it's embarrassing. And we're witnessing that here in Chicago with the Chicago Bears.
Year after year after year.
Well, it was a good day. We picked up a half game on Green Bay, Minnesota, and Detroit today.
Hey, it wasn't a good day because I'm losing my nuts.
I'll take it where I can get it, okay?
But Bruce, seriously, we talk about decisions that are being made, and there are some guys, and Bruce, I guarantee you, Ryan Pace has a pretty decent resume, but I believe, just like Trubisky, he was being groomed to take over this position. Regardless if he really qualified for it or not, he was being groomed for it. Doesn't mean he was the best candidate for it. And now we're actually, and this is what's the frustrating thing for me, is the fact that I'm a longtime Chicagoan. I've invested my time in my team. I've invested a few bucks in the teams because I support it. But to see a guy come in here and try to pull the wool over our eyes and say, oh, what you're seeing is not what you're really seeing. This is what you're seeing, but you think you're seeing this. No, we're not idiots. We're not stupid. We're not fools. And again, I told you we have the two greatest athletes that ever played in their respective sports. Ever. Walter Payton in the National Football League and Michael Jordan in basketball. The two greatest. So you can't fool us. And for the Chicago Bears organization front office, and Lauren said it, Ted Phillips, all the way down, there's something wrong there, man. There's something wrong there.
Yeah.
And every time they make these dumbass mistakes that they're making, it pushes everything back another year, 2, 3. And to me, it's unacceptable. It's just totally unacceptable.
Well, I agree with you, man. When you look at the level of lack of diversity with NFL teams, I agree with you 100%. I've always looked at the NFL. Matter of fact, when after I finished playing, one of the things that I wanted to do is I wanted to get into the front office. I wanted to be a player personnel director. I took the job as athletic director at Chicago State University. I was there for 4 years. Buddy Ryan became the head coach of Philadelphia, and Buddy wanted me to coach, and I never really wanted to coach. But what I did agree to was with Buddy, is to come in and work with the team during training camp for 6 weeks. And Buddy promised me that, he says, when the NFL executives come through, he would set up, he would make sure I got some FaceTimes with those folks. And he did. He kept his word. I got on the list. I was invited to the Combine for like 4 years in a row there in Indianapolis. but I never got it. But I really never got a chance, and I gave up.
Wow.
I gave up.
Wow. That's terrible.
And,
it sucks.
Yeah, I gave up. But you know what? One thing about and this conversation is really deep because it's hurtful to have a conversation like that, especially when you look at the NFL and look at the product on the field, and you're talking about anywhere from 65% to damn near 80% of the players year in and year out are African American.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm telling you, not only are these guys over the course of the last 40 years, not only are they great athletes, but they're some really intelligent guys too.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Exactly.
And the NFL is doing more today than they did, say, 20 years ago in terms of having minorities in executive positions, but they're nowhere at the level that the NBA is.
Exactly. Here,
and for a team like the Bears to have all the talent that they've had coming through, and most of these teams, they hire general managers, they hire assistant general managers, they hire player personnel directors, they presidents of the organization. 32 teams, man. And let me tell you, how many blacks do you see in those major positions, those top positions? Man, you probably can count them on
one
two
hand.
fingers.
One hand. I think it's about 4.
Yeah.
I think it's about 4. This is what I would do, and I'll put it out there, and we got 90 seconds to wrap everything up. I played the clip of Walter Payton when he broke the record, 275 yards, single game record, surpassing O.J. Simpson. What the Bears need to do, Bruce Herron, you can lead the charge. What they need to do is they need to get Brittany Payton, Jared Payton. Now, I don't even know if they're interested or not. They need to approach them, say we're going to give you 25% of the Bears organization. You're part owner, 25% ownership of the Chicago Bears. We want you on our board. We want you in our front office. We want to hear what you have to say as far as decision making is concerned, from personnel all the way up through the ranks. We want you to be a part of this organization because of what your dad did for the Chicago Bears. 25% ownership for the Payton family. That's Brittany Payton, Jared Payton, and even Connie Payton. Bruce, we got to go, man. It's the fastest hour in sports conversation. We love you, and we certainly will talk with you next week. Go Bears, Bruce. Take care, man.
Thanks, Bruce.
Go Bears.
Sounds good.
Hey, Jerry, quickly, I just wanted to say it was great to hear the late, great Joe McConnell calling the Payton deal. And I wanted to quote Bill Joust, the late, great.
Oh, my. I love Bill Joust.
Wildcats, fresh off their stunning upset of Notre Dame, blew a 21-point fourth-quarter lead in their number 25 national ranking when they lost a 17-point underdog, Miami of Ohio, 30-28. That's the answer to the trivia question. Nobody would ever get it.
Good night, everybody.
Yeah.
Relax, reset, rejuvenate. Go to a link right now to restart your life. TheRewindSports60.com. What are you waiting for? Hope to see you soon. The Rewind Sports 60.
Still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled
Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Sports Medicine Update, a weekly podcast with yours truly, Jerry Riles, and the Honorable Dr. Chad Padromas. Doc, how are you doing?
Doing great, Jerry. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic. Not enjoying this weather here in the Chicagoland area, my good friend. We had 60-degree temperatures latter part of the week, but now it's dipped down into the 40s and at night in the 30s. So I'm not prepared for all of this, but it's the part of the year that we have to endure. So we're hanging in there. But as far as hanging in there is concerned, I'm ecstatic and just beside myself because every weekend we have sports to look forward to. Last week it was the Masters, and congratulations to all those guys getting down. It was kind of odd watching the Masters during the fall, but it was really refreshing to get an opportunity to watch everyone compete and perform, down in Augusta. And of course, we've got the NBA draft that took place. A lot of movement here locally as far as the Bulls are concerned with the draft of Patrick Williams, the 4th overall pick out of Florida State. But college football is in the air as well. So sports is definitely hanging in there, despite the fact that we're hitting the second phase of this coronavirus and, the pandemic is taking its toll around the country. But one player, as far as the NBA is concerned, congratulations to the Los Angeles Lakers and LeBron James for winning the shortened season NBA title just recently. But they're looking forward to getting 2020-2021 season underway. December 22nd games are scheduled to get started in the 72-game regular season. As far as the Golden State Warriors are concerned, they were hit hard last year, and we know that their woes. They finished, I think, 15 and 35 or so, or 15 and 45, whatever. I can't even remember the numbers, but they had one of the worst records in franchise history due to injury. And one person who played on that team was the shooting guard in Klay Thompson. We know he sat out all of last year due to a ACL tear. He was rehabbing from there, and he was looking forward to getting underway in this regular season coming up. But then workouts last week, Doc, he tore the Achilles. Wow, and that shit shockwaves throughout the NBA and, of course, the Golden State Warriors. What was your reaction to hearing that injury of Klay Thompson?
No. I just can't imagine. I mean, we've seen it a few times, though. I mean, DeMarcus Cousins, same kind of thing. I mean, Derrick Rose too. Get rehab one, get another one. Jabari Parker or whatever. But I mean, poor guy. And that's it's pretty bad injury. They had used to say that people don't come back from it, and hard to know. I mean, DeMarcus Cousins, that was the big question with him. Was he going to come back? And the jury's still out because he just kept getting hurt with other things. But in general, the thought is that after a torn Achilles, an elite NBA player's career will probably never be the same if it continues at all. He's probably less disadvantaged in a way. I was just looking up that his vertical is 27 inches, which is, I believe, below average for the NBA. But the point being that if your livelihood is dependent upon having explosive jumping ability, chances are you may not quite get there. But in his case, dependent on being a great shooter, great defender, so you would think that he would maybe have a little better chance than some other people.
Hey, Doc, but how does something like this happen? Again, he tore his ACL last year, missed basically the entire regular season for the NBA and, of course, the playoffs, and he's rehabbing, getting himself in condition for this upcoming season. He goes through the workouts, and then, of course, this second injury to the opposite leg, the right leg with the Achilles, occurs. What happened? Would you speculate as far as the workout is concerned and trying to get him back up to, speed? Because again, we're talking about the middle of the latter part of November, and the season gets underway December 22nd. So he certainly was trying to get his body into playing shape. What do you speculate transpired in that workout that unfortunately caused this to miss another entire season, back-to-back seasons?
So I can, I can speculate a little, as long as it's understood it's only speculation. But data-wise, I'm editor of the textbook on the ACL, major textbook for orthopedic surgeons, as you perhaps know. It's 143 chapters, and I tell you this because we have just about everything to do with the ACL. So one interesting chapter that was written by a bright young European author who had written a couple of papers on it is that, interestingly, when you tear your ACL, I guess because you're not using the leg, you wind up getting some osteoporosis or osteopenia, I should say, in that leg, meaning the bone gets softer. And so, we suggest that when you're rehabbing an ACL that you take calcium supplements, one thing and another. Now, does this manifest as an increased incidence of stress fractures on that same leg? Not that I know of, but the point is that the affected leg that tears an ACL clearly has atrophic atrophy changes, of the bone, maybe of the tendons too. I know of no study, maybe one exists, but I know of no study that looks at the incidence of other injuries to the other leg. But I will tell you, a paper that I wrote, 10, 12 years ago, we looked at 150 people that I had done ACL reconstructions on using hamstring tendons, which is what I do. It's actually the biggest such paper published, and the main thing we looked at was, how well it worked, and it worked very well. But one thing we looked at was the incidence of re-tear. So this is 150 knees. We had 80% follow-up, meaning we had 120 people in for reevaluation, and we looked at how they did. So, happily, none of those people, 2 to 8 year follow-up, retore the ACL on the knee that I operated. But 5% of the people, so I think it was like 6 people out of the 120 that we had, something like that, tore the ACL in the other knee. So the incidence, if you're skilled at repairing an ACL, if you specialize in that kind of thing, or even if you don't, an appropriately fixed ACL is extremely rare for it to tear again. Much more common for it to tear on the opposite side. And that's just really reflecting the fact there's a finite incidence of ACL tears in people in general, particularly in athletes. So these people were just, I don't know that having torn it on the first side increased the risk on the other side. Maybe it did, but so that's interesting. And of course, Klay Thompson didn't tear the ACL of his other knee; he tore the Achilles of his other leg. And so I don't know of any data on the incidence of injuring something else on the opposite side. So data-wise, that's what I'm aware of that's out there. Speculation-wise, no way to know. I know nothing about his rehab after the ACL, but I will tell you that when you tear your ACL, you kind of have to stop running. There's no way around it. And so you get deconditioned. Both your legs are in general going to get a little weaker. Now, you can work hard to keep the other one strong, but it's not running strong. I wonder, so the incidence of doing toe raises, that exercise, so people do toe raises to strengthen their calves. And I will tell you that I repair torn ACLs like Klay Thompson's. I've been doing that for 30 plus years. And I will tell you that every single one that I've repaired, the people that ruptured it had previously done calf strengthening exercises. I mean, these are people that were fit and they had done things to strengthen the calf. So, that can be useful. But in my world, as I've said before, I'm not a big fan of joint-specific weightlifting. So I don't know. I don't know if Klay Thompson did toe raises as part of his ACL rehab. He reasonably might have. And if he did, I don't know that that had anything to do with tearing his Achilles. I mean, there's different schools of thought on this. There are people who would argue that by strengthening the muscle, you strengthen the tendon. But I've espoused this before. I'm just not a big fan of weightlifting for the legs of athletes who run or jump, because the stress in their legs is so great. I think it predisposes to injury. I will tell you, there are people who disagree with me, but I will tell you that, and I fixed a ruptured tendon in an NBA player, former NBA player. He just retired. I can't tell you his name, but he retired a couple of years prior to my doing it, and was in kind of an exhibition game and tore a tendon around his knee. And I remember when I fixed it, that the substance of the tendon had scar tissue, fatty degeneration. So here's the point I'm getting at. When you strengthen joints, the muscles get bigger and stronger. But muscles have a very good blood supply. Tendons have a poor blood supply. And that same strengthening that strengthens muscles can represent too much load on the tendon. Now, what's too much load? There's kind of no way to know, you know. But what I'm saying is these guys put just tremendous stress on their tendons just from running around. And so I don't know how he rehabbed. I'm sure he had great rehab. And I wouldn't want to speculate what was done and what wasn't. The one thing that I would say, though, my opinion, and when we rehab ACLs, we don't do toe raises. And just because I'm aware of the incidence of tendon problems. Now, again, there are people who would disagree with me and would say, Dr. Prodromus, you're wrong. You have to strengthen it to help prevent injury. And it's not really clear from the literature one way or another, but you know, when you see everybody who gets this injury having done toe raises, and I have no idea if Clay Thompson did or not, you know, I'm kind of the opinion that you run a greater risk. I mean, for somebody like him who's playing all these games, I mean, these guys, these NBA players, just gee whiz, you know, and they're in the playoffs every year, right? So they're playing 100 games every year, and you know, so that kind of stress on their legs, you know, I don't know. So what I've said was just, it's a little speculation. I wouldn't want to speculate on what he did, but I can tell you as a matter of philosophy, there's different philosophies. My opinion, I don't think it's not that he even did it necessarily or that it mattered, but I'm not a big fan of doing exercises to specifically strengthen your calf.
Dr. Chad Prodromus, Sports Medicine Update, the weekly podcast, Jerry Riles. Doc, I want to ask you, I'm left-handed. I'm dominant left-handed. I do practically everything with my left hand. I think the same applies toward jumping ability. Some people are, you know, strong leg left. Some people are strong leg right. How does that factor in as far as injuries are concerned? Again, Clay Thompson with the torn ACL on the left leg. The right leg, he just tore the Achilles. Now, I'm not sure which dominant leg he is, but does that play a role in rehabbing and overcompensating on one side due to injuries? How does the dominant leg play all into this, or does it at all?
That's a very interesting question. So I'll tell you, I know a few things, a lot I don't know. I will tell you that right-handed people, and I can't give you exact statistics, but almost all right-handed people kick with their right leg. And so they're right, and that's how you can kind of tell right leg dominant. I read this someplace, I'm not sure that it's accurate, but I had read a long time ago that about 50% of the left-handed people kick with their right leg. So you tear tendons, and this is something else to know. Tendons tear when you land on them, not when you jump up on them, almost always. So the question would be, so let's say he's a right-handed person, and he tore his left Achilles? Is that what you said?
It was the left ACL, the right Achilles.
The right Achilles, yeah. So, you know, the question is, I'd have to see. I don't think a clip of it exists, but so the question would be, what leg does he usually land on if he lands on one leg? And I don't know the answer. So, handedness probably correlates with what leg you usually land on. If it's, you know, I mean, I don't know how many people shoot these one-handed, you know, Dirk Nowitzki kind of shots, and it would depend on if you're doing a right-sided or left-sided layup. So I think it's what's going to matter is the leg you land on, and whether and what leg is dominant. And I honestly don't know if people tend to land more on their dominant or their you know, their non-dominant leg. It's a great question, though.
So let's just get it straight for those who are listening or maybe watching this the weekly podcast. It's not necessarily in your leaping when you tear, you know, whether it's the ACL or it's typically when you're landing After
Yeah.
jumping and when you're landing is typically when the injury occurs.
Exactly right. It's called an eccentric contraction. So a concentric contraction is like you can imagine if you're doing curls. When you're bringing the bar up, that's concentric, the muscle shortening. So-called eccentric, the muscle is elongating. And it's kind of interesting. Nobody knows exactly why this is, but I had one example recently where this appeared not to be the case, but it is said that all tendon tears occur with an eccentric contraction. And some time ago I read some of the theory on it, and it had something to do with muscle recruitment, that neurologically the body has a harder time relaxing sequentially than contracting. So I don't know the reason, but it's landing after jumping when people it may not be true for the ACL. The ACL is a little different because there's actually 3 schools of thought on how you tear your ACL. It's very complicated. You would think it would be settled, but it's not. So twisting, landing after jumping. But it turns out that a violent quadriceps contraction, and I saw a great video of a Olympic volleyball player who jumped and appeared to tear their ACL jumping. So it turns out that a violent contraction of the quadriceps pulls your lower leg forward and puts stress on the ACL. So it may be that you can tear your ACL by jumping, although that's considered unusual. But tendon ruptures, Achilles tendon, patellar tendon, quadriceps tendon are thought to always occur when you land.
So, Doc, I got to ask you the question as well. Klay Thompson, 30 years of age, and again, it appears it's unusual, back-to-back seasons, ACL one leg, Achilles on the other leg. 30 years in layman's term, you're fairly, still a young man or woman, and you got many more years of, athletic exercise, especially on the amateur level, and, maybe some hardcore stuff. But as far as a professional athlete and an NBA player, as you talked about, 3 championships and 5 trips to the postseason, so averaging 100 games a year, 30 years of age, that's kind of, on the other side of, heading north as far as your career is concerned. Does that play a role in a factor as far as rehabbing and, productive years once you've healed, whether it's one injury or the other or both? In Klay Thompson, he's going to miss 2 consecutive back-to-back seasons out with injuries. Can he return and play at a high level at that rate and get back to a championship form? Yeah, hard to know. It'd be an interesting laboratory. We're going to see with Kevin Durant. We'll probably see with DeMarcus Cousins. So I don't know. I don't know if it's ever been done. And I'm trying to think. There was a well-known example of somebody who tore their Achilles. It was never the same. I meant to look it up. I didn't get a chance. I had the name Isaiah Thomas in my head, but I don't think it was him. I'm not sure who it is. But as I was saying, I think you've got a better chance. I think he's got a better chance than someone whose bread and butter was explosive athleticism, because he doesn't need to do that. He needs to be able to shoot. I think he'll be able to shoot. Terrific defender. A lot of that's just determination and strength. So, I think he's got a good shot, put it that way. I think Kevin Durant does too. It'll be interesting, but nobody knows. Doc, I got to ask you this question as well, and I'm sure there are some people, again, tuning in who may have experienced this similar to what I have. I'm left-handed, and over the years, I've experienced, multiple subtle, some would say chronic injuries, but most of the injuries that nothing major or serious to a certain degree, but most of the injuries that I've, acquired over the years have all been on my left side. And again, because I'm a left-dominant person, I have what is called, and I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's called a slap tear or a flat tear in my shoulder here. I have slight hip problems. I had surgery on my left ankle, and I don't know if I'm going through it right now, but I may have plantar fasciitis on the left foot as well, because I'm limping around after playing golf earlier this week. My point being is that most of the, and it was brought to my attention by a doctor. But most of the injuries that I sustained, if you looked at my medical records, they've all been on the left side of my body. Is that common?
Well, the upper extremity ones are. So if you're left-hand dominant, then I know you're a baseball player, right? So you're throwing, so you're not, usually don't hurt the right shoulder. Baseball players usually don't hurt the non. So the shoulder for sure, the elbow, and it kind of depends. But in general, the dominant, as we say, upper extremity gets hurt more often. The lower extremity is complicated for numerous reasons. Number one, so Jerry, what leg do you kick with?
It's the right one.
Yeah, see, I'm left-handed too, by the way, and I kick with my right leg. But most, most righties kick with their right leg, not the opposite one. So then the question comes, kickers play. So if you were a place kicker, you'd kick with your right leg. But the leg that would be at risk would be the left, the planting leg. And I'm trying to think. Alan Casey, Carolina Panthers kicker, retired a couple years ago. So he tore his ACL, probably his left leg. He kicks with his right leg, and it got repaired. Then when he came back, he either ruptured his patellar tendon or fractured his patella. But it was a planting leg. So that's clearly for a kicker, like a place kicker, the non-dominant leg is the one that takes all the stress. I mean, you're not going to tear up your knee kicking a ball. It's always the one that you land on. Mm-hmm. So for something like that, that would matter. There are studies actually done of how much time you spend standing on your dominant versus non-dominant legs. A whole literature on it. I'm not really, I don't know much about it. But I think that it's a good question. Like soccer players, do soccer players tear their non-dominant leg more often because it's the pivot leg? So the answer is I don't know. Clearly for the upper extremity, the left-sided stuff, like with you, is common. But for the legs, it gets more complicated, both for reasons of, like in your case, you're right leg dominant, even though you're left-handed. And I think the incidence of lower extremity injuries would probably be sport specific and would probably leg dominant specific more than handedness specific. So I don't much know. But for the upper extremity, it's common. In fact, we tell people all the time. We see people who are using their right upper extremity and they get problems. And I'm telling these people all the time to use their other arm more often to protect the one that they use. To the point. So I'm a left-handed surgeon, but I got in the habit a long time ago. I use my right arm more for mundane activities. I use it to open doors and such, just because I try to protect my left hand a little bit, because right. It's the one that you're doing most of the dexterous work with. Unless it's like a Mitchell Trubisky hurt his left shoulder, but that was just a freak accident. But usually they're hurting the dominant one.
Speaking of Trubisky and football, and we talk about Klay Thompson and basketball, and of course you mentioned soccer. When you see these types of injuries, and my son, he tore his ACL playing dodgeball. I tell him not to tell anybody that, because he's a 3-sport athlete, never been hurt before. He goes off to college, plays dodgeball, and he tears his ACL.
Poor guy.
But for those people who think he's fine and he's good now. But for those people who are kind of curious, do you see these sort of injuries in more sports, i.e. basketball, as opposed to maybe someone who's playing tennis, or does it even matter?
It matters a lot. And I'll tell you, we actually wrote what I think is the definitive paper on the matter. We published it again in the medical journal, 10 years ago, maybe a little more. So we did what's called a systematic review. We looked at all the papers that we could find that described ACL tears in athletes in various sports, and hundreds of papers actually. And so we tried to figure out. Actually, the reason we did the paper was we were trying to figure out. And I might have mentioned this in a prior podcast, the gender incidence, because females tear their ACL a lot more than males. And I had seen papers, I saw one where it says it's 10 times as often, others said it was twice as often, it was all over the map. So we thought, well, this should be something we can figure out. So we did a paper on that, in the process of which, though, we also looked at sports. And so I'll tell you what we found since you bring it up for ACLs. It was interesting. First of all, the gender incidence turns out to be about 3. So it depends on the sports. There are high-risk sports. So for high-risk sports for ACLs, which are soccer and basketball, volleyball was thought to be high risk, although in the studies we did at the time it wasn't necessarily clear that it was. But anyway, the incidence female to male was about 3.5 to 1, and females to males. And the incidence per year was about 4.5% per year. So if you're a female playing basketball after 4 years of high school and 4 years of college, it's 8 years times 4.5. That's like 40%. So, it's unfortunate, but female basketball, soccer players have something like a 40% incidence if they play through 8 years of tearing their ACL. Anyway, so as far as the sports go, though, what we found was, so that was looking at ones that females play. So females in general don't play tackle football. So when you include all sports, what we found was this. We actually published it. There's a graph on the incidence and all that. It's very complicated because different papers said, so how do you determine what the incidence is for a sport? Well, it's per hour of play and per hour of, games. But then, so how do you, some people did it in terms of hours, some did it in terms of practices. So we did our best to make it equivalent. We called them exposures. Anyway, so high-risk sports for ACLs, basketball for sure, soccer for sure, football too, low risk, so tennis. I got to tell you, it might have been subliminal, but I have 2 daughters, and when they were younger, we were talking about sports to play, and I just fixing all these ACLs, and I'm like, hey, tennis looks pretty good. You never, almost never. It occurs usually landing after jumping on an overhead, and I've seen a couple, but almost never. So if you want a sport, if you're worried about your ACL, play tennis. Baseball's fairly low risk too. I think everybody remembers Corey Patterson, I think it was, tore his ACL, and everybody saw it. He elongated a step to land at first base and tore his ACL. So you can get it at baseball. But soccer, basketball are high, football pretty high, tennis low. I don't remember all of them now. It's been a while since I looked at the chart. But snow skiing off the charts, so higher. So snow skiing much higher than any other sport, and it varied a little by skill level. So instructors still at a high level, but less high than duffers. But if you follow, and I really don't, but if you follow Olympic skiing, these people they're all always tearing their ACL. So so if anybody's interested, they can look up our paper. If they look up my name and sport ACL tear, we have the chart that had. We had all kinds of things in there. A team handball, I remember, it was big in Europe, not particularly here. Lacrosse, rugby, all kinds of things. Some of them had more data than others, but it's kind of what you would think. So baseball is better, tennis is much better, soccer and basketball very bad. Volleyball, everybody thinks volleyball is high risk, but we couldn't find papers proving it, so I don't know about volleyball.
Wow, it's interesting that you bring up genders, Doc. Men and women, and we obviously physically it's a different structure. Do you attribute the women's injuries? Can you say one reason is the fact that they have a lower center of gravity compared to men? That could be a possibility of why they sustain so many torn ACLs?
So let me tell you, I said a few minutes ago that our textbook, in the second edition now, was published in 2008, it's used all over the world, and they asked me to do a second edition, which we did in 2017. But anyway, 143 chapters. So why is it that females tear it more, right? So it turns out, we have separate chapters on this by a couple of people. It turns out nobody knows. There are 3 hypotheses, and I don't want to get too wonky here, but there's an anatomic, a physiologic, and a biomechanical. So just real quick, what does that mean? Right. And there have been like hundreds of papers written on this, and it's still not conclusive. So the anatomic is that females, the ACL exists in something called the notch in the middle of the knee. And females, the notch is a little narrower, and people have hypothesized that this narrow bony notch kind of guillotines the ACL. And there are some papers that seem to show it, some that don't. So maybe that's why. The second one, the physiologic, it's a very interesting thing. We talked about tearing things when you land after jumping. So boys and girls land differently. So up to the age of 12, they land the same. But when they go through puberty, males, when they jump, land and go down in a low crouch. Females, not so much. And so the thought is that the violent quadriceps contraction to stop the landing can contribute to the increased incidence of ACL tears in females. So much so that people have hypothesized that females don't crouch because their hamstrings are weaker, and this has been studied. So there's some programs that emphasize hamstring strengthening in females to prevent this. Nobody really knows. The third thing, so that's the biomechanical. The third is the physiologic. It's hormonal. So this is kind of interesting too. People have studied ACL tear incidence in females as a function of where they are in their menstrual cycles when they tear it. And again, conflicting evidence, but it appears that there is some correlation. There's a part of the menstrual cycle where there's a hormone that's secreted that loosens your ligaments a little. And I have to tell you, I saw a really interesting patient. So we have an office in Naples, Florida, which is where I am right now. And I saw a patient yesterday who actually drove up from Miami, a youth, so I won't say much in the way of details, but I will just say that the symptoms were correlated with the menstrual cycle, and in a pretty dramatic way, more than I had seen. So then the question is, well, should females not do things so during certain times? Nobody knows. And I'll tell you, with all of these things, with all of them, there are studies both ways. None of this is clear. There are studies showing it, studies not showing it, and so not totally clear. What are you going to do about it? Well, the hamstring strengthening in young females, I no studies that I know, excuse me, showing that it helps necessarily. So, but what we do know is just to be aware. Loose jointedness matters too, by the way. So loose jointed people tear their ACLs a little more. So I don't know. I mean, depends who you are, what you think. I mean, if you're the parent of a daughter, and I have two daughters who are pretty athletic, I can't say that it didn't enter my mind a little bit. It's kind of easy. Neither of my daughters particularly much like soccer. They so it was kind of easy. But if you've got a loose jointed person and they're female, and I don't know if it'd be. I mean, it's real data. Whether I guess it's shared decision making.
Great information, Doc, and we can go on, and that's why we have the weekly podcast, because we always have a new wealth of information to put out there for the masses to absorb and embrace. But real quick before we say goodbye for this podcast, you mentioned hamstring, and I got to go over to the National Football League and our own Chicago Bears, sitting at 5-5. They got a bye week this week after suffering a disappointing loss on Monday Night Football against the Minnesota Vikings. And in that game, defensive tackle Akeem Hicks left the game due to a pulled hamstring. He's a big boy. He stands, I think, 6'3", 365 pounds, somewhere in that area, maybe even 6'5", but he's a big boy, and he carries a lot of weight. And unfortunately, he couldn't go the entire game because of that injury. How does a big fella handle injuries such as a hamstring, and what's the recovery rate for them?
That's great question. I don't know that it's any worse for them. It's interesting because the hamstring strains, it's a lot of times a track guy. So it turns out if you're a fast runner, you've got more fast twitch type 2 muscle fibers, and there's some evidence that if you have that, your incidence of hamstring strains is higher. So he can be, a lot of big guys, they may not be track athletes, but they will still have a lot of fast twitch muscle fibers, and that's why they're big and agile and not big and slow. So I don't know that it's any worse for someone that size. It might even be a little less bad because, they're not going in these all-out sprints. So it was interesting. I remember I was watching the game, and the announcer said, well, I'm sure this is going to be multiple weeks. And I was thinking, yeah, maybe. Could even be longer than that. But it was interesting to me that they jumped to the conclusion because, not all hamstring strains are slow to heal.
And, I think one reason, Dr. Prodromou, the reason they jumped to that conclusion is because in our mindset, and, we're not doctors and we don't play them on television. Again, I bring up his size because typically when a big guy has an injury, along those lines, it appears that it may take a little bit longer, compared to what you say as far as a track guy or a leaner guy is concerned. So I guess from the layman's perspective, to see him go out this way and knowing that he's a large mass individual, your mind just tells you it may take a little bit longer.
Well, I'll tell you one other interesting thing. So we do a lot of work and research with what's called low-level laser treatment. This is light powered below the level at which lasers produce heat. And they're picked up by the mitochondria and cells. They increase energy production, blood flow, and facilitate healing. So we treat muscle strains with this and have had really good success. I have not treated a professional athlete with it. I'd kind of like to, though, because, what do you do for hamstrings? Not a heck of a lot. And I just kind of put that out there because I think it's something that in the future has great potential. For example, there was a recent paper on tennis elbow, and which has been shown that almost no matter what you do, it really doesn't matter. And the only thing at 6 months after diagnosis that had a positive effect was using low-level laser treatment, which is correlated with greater grip strength at 6 months. So in an area where there's not much we can do, this may be something that, that is helpful.
One last question. I don't know if you've seen these on the market. They're little devices. They're called Healy's, Healy, and I guess they're electro pulsating, things that you put on your muscles for fatigue or, to supposedly help speed up recovery. Have you heard of that, and does it work?
So, there are magnets that induce magnetism and are supposed to heal. I think I've heard of them. I don't know how they work, but they may work that way. And I know there are people that swear by them. A couple of years ago, if it's a magnet, maybe I've got the wrong thing, but if it works by magnetism, I did some research, and I've kept up a little. I have not seen anything sort of scientific that leads me to think that they necessarily do much. Having said that, though, if they're I'm sure they're not going to hurt anything, and they're probably inexpensive. So, if you try one and it makes it feel better, hey, why not?
Well, I know there are a lot of people who are investing in this product, and who knows? I don't know if it's a fad or if it's something that's trending or if it's something that's really effective. At any rate, I know that you are very effective, doctor, and we appreciate all the information that you present to us on a weekly basis with the Sports Medicine Update podcast. If anyone wants to find out more, get an opportunity to talk with you, or just want to gather some more information on how to be healthy and if they get injured, what they can do to recover, how do they get a hold of you?
So call our office. It's 847-699-6810. We've got a great staff. You'll always get a live person and not a phone bank. And our email is easy. It's just ortho@ISMOC, Illinois Sports Medicine Orthopedic Center, but ortho@ISMOC.net. And if you email, we will answer you.
Sounds good. That's always exciting. And again, knowledgeable information that we can certainly take along with us and apply to our daily lives. Whether we're the professional athletes out there, or if we're just a weekend warrior, or even a couch potato, it's always useful information. Dr. Chad Prodromou, the Sports Medicine Update podcast. We'll talk to you next week. Enjoy your stay down in Florida, my good friend. We'll see you soon.
Thank you so much, Jerry. You too. Be well.
Take care.